Right, welcome back to the Me, Myself, and Hopefully You podcast. My name is Tarek, a 20-year-old university student who has no idea what he wants to do with his life, and so decided to start a podcast because that's what everyone seems to be doing these days, in the hopes of gaining some sort of inspiration or gain a bit of life advice so I can figure it all out. This week, I sit with a 26-year Navy SEAL veteran. Now, if you don't know, the US Navy SEALs conduct small unit special operation missions and are usually ordered to capture or eliminate high-level targets or to gather intelligence behind enemy lines. My guest this week tells me all about the excruciating journey you must go on in order to become a Navy SEAL, including what Hell Week is like, and discuss how he led undercover undersea Navy operations which had to be approved by the President of the United States himself. We also discuss his experiences of protecting high-level government officials and being in the same room whilst the Iraqi constitution was being signed. An absolute mental episodes with some amazing stories. So without further ado, my guest at this time is the incredibly insightful William Branham. William, I want to sort of start off with just asking you about sort of you growing up, right? Before everything happened, what was your sort of childhood like?
So I grew up in a little town called Meridian, Mississippi, or actually just outside. It's very kind of country bumpkin. My nearest neighbor was about a mile away. We had a good plot of land. And but I went to public high school. I grew up very poor, and but my grandparents helped us out whenever they could. But eventually, when I got older, I joined the Boy Scouts. I was very active in the Boy Scouts. I liked hunting. I liked being out in the woods. I liked shooting guns. I thought I liked swimming. When I got old enough, I worked at the Boy Scout camp through my high school years to make about $100 a week, which was a lot of money to me back in the day. And I heard about this. I always knew I wanted to be some sort of elite soldier of sorts, although I didn't really know what that meant. I don't think at the time, because there was no internet when I grew up. I had four TV channels. But what I was able to do as I watched some Chuck Norris, who I think everyone around the world knows who Chuck Norris is, in a movie called Delta Force. And so they were riding dirt bikes, shooting rockets and fighting terror around the world. So I thought that was super cool, something I really wanted to do. There was a movie called Rambo. I don't know if you've ever heard of it.
Yeah.
Sylvester Stallone. He was an Army Ranger, I think, in Vietnam. And they talked about fighting in the jungle and things like that. So that was something that really interested me, because I liked running around in the woods, and that just seemed super cool. And then there was a guy by the name of John Wayne. He was a Green Beret in Vietnam, at least in the movie Green Berets, here in the United States. And so those were kind of some role models that I had growing up. I also watched a lot of Kung Fu theater. So I wanted to be a ninja when I grew up. I'm still trying to figure out how to become a ninja. We are wearing masks now all the time. So it's almost like I'm almost there.
Exactly. If anything, it's protection, isn't it?
Right. Yeah. Something like that. I need like the ninja smoke to poof and disappear. Once I learn that, then I think maybe I'll be more on my way to becoming a ninja. But I was, like I said, I was heavily involved in the Boy Scouts. I became an Eagle Scout, and I was at this event called the National Jamboree, where Boy Scouts from all over the world come together and have this big, camping event. And I got to meet Steven Spielberg at that event, and some like really well-known celebrities that were like up and coming. They were pretty popular, and then they just became even more popular over time. But I met a kid at the National Jamboree, and I told him I wanted to be, I don't know, some kind of Rambo person when I grew up. And he said, yeah, well, I'm going to be a Navy SEAL. And I said, well, what's that? He's like, it's like Rambo, but they also, they jump out of airplanes, they blow stuff up, they shoot guns, they sneak around in the woods, they scuba dive, and it's the hardest military training in the world. And I was like, that's what I want to do. I want to do the hardest thing out there. I didn't have much of I didn't think I wanted to be really academically involved because I was not a good student. I was a poor student. I was probably a C- student at best. So academics was certainly not my thing. I wanted to do something physical. And so eventually I joined the Navy to become a Navy SEAL. And while I was when I joined the Navy, I actually failed the SEAL screening test the first time I took it. I actually failed it the second time I took it too. But that led me on a road to not go directly into SEAL training because I didn't pass the basic fitness test. I could have, but my mind wasn't quite where it needed to be to pass that test. And so I ended up spending some time in purgatory in the regular Navy, riding a ship for 2 years. And that actually almost cost me going to the Navy because I went to a school that the Navy there were only a few people that went to that school. So that made me very critical. And so I had to find a way to get out of the regular Navy and join the SEAL teams. And so what I ended up having to do is I ended up asking the most senior guy in the Navy, who's the chief of naval operations. The only people more senior to him is the Secretary of Defense and the President of the United States. So I pretty much went to the top of anyone in the Navy in order to get to become, at least to just go try to become a Navy SEAL, not even to become a Navy SEAL.
So what was that like then? Like you went straight to the top, the guy just below the Secretary of State and the President. What was it like, what made you so motivated that you were willing to go straight up to this person and say what you said?
Well, some of it was a little bit of ignorance. I didn't really know how powerful he was. I was just a young nobody in the Navy, but I was told no by so many people. Like in the military, there's this guy, we call him in the Navy, we call him a detailer, and he details you to your next job. It's kind of like an HR person. And he's like, you're going to go to here, you're going to go to this ship, you're going to go to this job, whatever the Navy needs. And because I went to this school to work on missile launchers for Tomahawk missiles, I was very critical because there were very few of us in the Navy. I was very critical. And so when my 2 years on my ship was up, before that 2 years is up, at the 9-month mark, you call your detailer and say, hey, this is what I want to do next. This is what I'm thinking, blah, blah, whatever. And my detailer said, that's great that you want to become a Navy SEAL, but you're too critical to the Navy, so I'm not going to let you go to SEAL training. And I said, but that's why I joined the Navy, was to become a SEAL. And he's like, sorry, bro, it's not your gig. You're too critical, so you're only going to do these other things working for me. And I was like, okay. And he has that power. He can certainly do that. Go ahead.
Sorry. What does he mean by too critical?
Because the Navy needs people to do that job. They need people to work on that missile launcher. Because I had that I went to that school. Now I'm tagged to that. That's the only thing that I can do in the Navy until they train more people to do it, to do that job. And so I eventually passed the SEAL screening test twice. I did all the medical stuff, all the physical stuff, and I got letters of recommendation, and even from other SEALs that were there in Yokosuka, Japan. And then the CNO, the Chief of Naval Operations, we get the word that he's going to come to Japan and he's going to come to our ship. Now, I was in one of the oldest ships in the Navy at the time that was still commissioned. And he came to my ship in Japan, and he didn't go to any other ship. And people were like, hey, if you really want to do this, then you should ask the CNO, because, throughout his naval career, he has been a very common sense leader. And, and what I mean by that is when people asked him, like, why are the rules like this? This doesn't make sense. He was like, really? That's the rule? We'll change it to where it makes sense. And so he was just like that common sense leader. He didn't care about like the political gain or being right or just suck it up. He was about, okay, let's change it because that makes sense. And so he came to my ship, and people were like, you should ask him if you can go become a SEAL. And so he came to the ship. He talked about his vision of the Navy and what we're going to do. And then he said, does anyone have any questions? And I, of course, raised my hand right away. I was the second person he called on. And I said, I joined the Navy to become a SEAL. I think I deserve a chance to go. My detailer won't let me go to SEAL training, and I think I deserve a chance to go. He turns to my commanding officer of the ship, and he said, is he a good guy? And he was like, yes, he was the sailor of the quarter, which is kind of like employee of the month. You're voted on by the leadership because you did a good job. And then he turns back to me. It's like, check, you'll be in the first class after your time on the ship is up. 6 weeks later, I'm off to California to SEAL training. And it didn't matter who I talked to before then. They were like, your detailer has to let you go. And that night I was in Japan. This was, again, pre-internet. I called Washington, D.C., where the SEAL detailer was. And I said, hey, have you heard anything about my package to go to SEAL training? And he's like, what is your name? And I told him, and he said, yeah, I mailed it out this morning. And that was, I don't know, like 8 hours, less than that, from the time that I asked the CNO till, I called back to DC. And it was like, it was almost instantaneous. I don't think that if we had internet back then, it could have happened any faster.
That is mental. So this guy was so powerful. I mean, he was obviously so powerful that he basically pushed through everyone else and then got you to the point that you've been wanting to get to for so long, but couldn't because of the detailer. Mental.
Right.
And so now that you're now you're allowed to go on and do what you want to do. What's that process like of becoming a Navy SEAL? And what was it like? What was your experience of it?
So it took me, I joined the Navy to be a SEAL, and then it took me 3 years just to get to SEAL training, because I had boot camp, and then I had the regular school that I had to go to, because in the Navy you have to have a certain school in order to advance, in order to make the next advancement, the next rank. Then I took that other school that set me behind and put me on a ship for 2 years. So now there's 3 years. I'm finally at SEAL training. I show up and I realize very quickly, like, we haven't even started training yet. I check in with another guy who had been to SEAL training before, but he broke his leg and he went away and he came back. And so he knew a little more what to expect. So I hung out with him as much as I could. We became roommates. And he was like, hey, you want to go for a run after we check into into the command? It was a Friday afternoon. I'm like, yeah, let's go for a run. I thought I was a pretty good runner. And I learned very quickly that my running skills suck. And that was pretty much the theme for most of probably at least the first 6 months. SEAL training is 6 months long, just the selection process. And it took me a short 13 months to get through that training. Because number one, I didn't prepare my body for the beating that I was going to take. My mind was fine. Like, I can take a beating. I'm not going to quit. But my body wasn't quite ready for it. And so I broke 3 or 4 times while in SEAL training. And so I started, and then I got hurt, and they put me into the next class. And then I continued on there, and I got hurt, and they put me into the next class. And then I didn't heal up. And then as I'm going through that, that third class that I'm a part of, they were like, listen, if you don't make it through training now, we're going to kick you out and send you back to the regular Navy. And I was like, I can't go back to the regular Navy. I'll never get a chance to come back because I'm too critical, I guess. And so that third class that I was in, I did not heal up, but I just went through the class, and I was limping the whole time, all the way up until Hell Week. Hell Week is like week number 5. I had passed enough runs and met the standard. I passed the swims, the runs, at least one run in order to go to Hell Week. The obstacle courses, all the other, where they tie you up, your hands and feet and throw you in the water, and you have to survive. You have to like bob up and down and swim and do all sorts of other weird things, do flips underwater while you're all tied up, do underwater knot tying. So I did all of these things good enough to get to go to Hell Week. And then during Hell Week, Hell Week is 5.5 days of You don't sleep. Actually, we slept about 2.5 hours the entire 5.5 days. They keep you cold and wet and miserable. And you work as a team, as a boat crew of 7 guys, where you're carrying this boat around on your head for the entire time. And everything is a race. And I was fortunate enough to, there was a boat crew that guys were about my size that they were winning all the races. And I noticed this very early on. I noticed this like Sunday night and into Monday morning. I'm like, those guys are winning all the races. And then Monday afternoon, we had lost enough people. So in SEAL training, you lose about 75% of the people who start up until Hell Week. And then of those people that are left over, you lose another 75% of those people. And so that's pretty much the attrition of SEAL training. Then you lose some other people, you know, further on for different things, academics or safety violations or performance or something like that. And so I see these guys and they're right around my height. And then we have so many people quit at that point, Monday of Hell Week. Then they have to like rearrange the boat crews. And the way that you get into a boat crew is it's all by height, because everyone is carrying the boat on their head. And so you can't have like super tall people and super short people. Like the short people aren't going to carry the load. So everyone needs to be about the same height. And so I'm like, that boat crew 3, they're winning all the races. And so when, you know, enough people had quit, and we were remeasuring like new boat crew, I was like 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 guys in the boat crew. That's boat crew 1, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. That's boat crew 2, 1, 2, 3, 4. I'll be number 5, 6, 7, boat crew 3. And that's how I got into this boat crew. And from that time, I learned something very, very special about myself that I didn't know, or I wasn't able to tap into before getting into this boat crew. Is these guys, no one talked about it, but they just had this uncommon desire to win no matter what. And, you know, I was in the boat crew now. And even though I was injured, even though I felt sorry for myself because I wasn't a great runner, I couldn't let the boat crew down. If I slowed down, then I slowed down the whole boat crew. And so these guys, they just had this different mindset of if there was any space between the boat that was in front of them and the boat, you know, the 2 boats that they were going to pass and they were going to win. And they always found their way to get to the front. And so the lesson that I learned is Hell Week sucks. SEAL training sucks. All of it sucks. But you have an option. You have 2 options when you're in SEAL training. You can either quit or you can keep going. That's option number 1. Option number 2 is if you keep going, you can be mediocre or you can be awesome. And I chose to be with a group of men who wanted to be awesome. They didn't want to be mediocre. They didn't want to just like get through Hell Week. They wanted to fucking crush Hell Week. And so that's what we did. And so I learned that lesson of you can be mediocre or you can be awesome. And so I always chose to be awesome after that.
That reminds me of the David Goggins quote of "Be uncommon amongst uncommon men," and I think it's perfect because it's like you said, it's about first challenging you to do it and then doing it to the best of the best possible way.
Right.
And I think that's what you're getting with Boat Crew 3 as well. What in terms of so I'm from the UK. I don't know if you can tell. You probably can, and a lot of
I couldn't tell. No, not at all.
You couldn't tell at all. No,
no.
So like obviously we don't have the Navy SEALs, and we, you know, I'm familiar. I don't know how familiar you are with like David Goggins, Jocko Willing, Johnny Kim. Like those are the 3 people that I'm familiar with when it comes to sort of knowing about the Navy SEALs. So we don't know a lot about it. So, but we're always talking about how hardcore this Hell Week is, how hardcore this training is, and how essentially they're trying to, you know, beat you so badly that they get rid of everyone, as many people as possible. Essentially what they're trying to do is get rid of as many people as possible so that only the best of the best, you know, get through. What are some of the ways? I know you mentioned a little bit about how they tie you in the back, tie your hands in the back and whatever. What are some of the ways that they do that, and how are you convincing yourself, you know what, no, I just need to carry on? Because it's not like the reward is, you know, massively, you know, beneficial in terms of you're not going to get £1 million out of it. Do you know what I mean? No. It's got to be something that's intrinsic. There's no extrinsic reward here. So what are some of those really hard challenges, and what is your thinking process when completing those?
So people ask me, is SEAL training more mental or is it more physical? And I say it's 100% of both, because there were people, most of the people that I watched quit were far superior athletes than me. I am mediocre athlete at best. I failed the SEAL training test the first time I took it. First 2 times I took it. Because I didn't have the desire, the real true desire. I mean, the first time I didn't have the true desire. I didn't think I was strong enough to do it. The second time, my ego got in the way. I beat everyone that was taking the screening test with me. And so the screening test, it's push-ups, pull-ups, sit-ups, a run, and a swim. You do the swim, and then you do the push-ups, pull-ups, sit-ups, and then you change clothes, and then you put on for SEALs, you put on long pants and boots. For Navy, EOD, and diver, it's the same screening tests. All the numbers are not as strict. They're not as hard to do. And so you run in tennis shoes and shorts for those other 2. You're still doing the same swim, push-ups, pull-ups, sit-ups, and run. And so when I did it, when I took it that second time with these other guys, I beat them in the swim. I beat them in push-ups, pull-ups, sit-ups. I did more than everyone. And I was the first one across the finish line in the run. Same distance, boots and long pants. And I thought I had it in the bag. But what happened is I failed that run by 12 seconds, even though I was the first one across the line. I didn't make the SEAL time. All the other guys, their times to run were longer. They had more time to cross the finish line. I was like, I got this. And so I didn't really hustle at the end because I was beating everyone by such a large margin. And so I failed it the second time. I took it the third time and the fourth time and the fifth time. I had no problem. It's still a hard test, but I was like, there's no way I'm going to fail this. But there were guys in SEAL training that everything looked easy. They ran effortlessly across that soft sand. And I don't know if you've ever run in soft sand. It sucks the energy out of you. There's a different way of running when you run on soft sand versus running on like the road or in the grass. When you push off the soft sand, it takes about 40% of your forward momentum and dumps it behind you because the soft sand just sort of gives way. So you have to learn a different way to run on the soft sand. And they do lots of soft sand running. So these guys would run on the soft sand effortlessly. They were in the front of the pack all the time. They were the first ones in the timed runs. They were fastest swimmers. They could fly around the O course. And one of the things that the instructors do in SEAL training. Now, not all classes are made the same. Like I said, I was in 4 different classes, and I can tell you that 2 of the 4 classes were much harder than the other 2. And actually one was harder than all 4, at least in the beginning. And one of the things that got to most people is failure. So it didn't matter how perfect you did your push-ups, how great your pull-ups were, if you were the first one across the line, if it didn't matter what you were doing, you're going to fail. You're either not loud enough, you're not strong enough, you didn't swim well enough, who cares what the reason was? You're going to fail. The instructors will come out and they're like, you suck, you failed, you're the worst person on the planet, you can't do this, you're not cut out for this. And these guys, it wasn't, Jocko says discipline equals freedom. These guys had discipline to be in incredible shape, but they didn't have the grit to carry on, even though they were failing. And they were told they were failing. They're used to winning. They're used to putting in the effort and being rewarded for their achievement. In SEAL training, you're punished for winning. You are punished no matter what. You won? Yeah. No, you didn't. You suck because you didn't bring the rest of your team up to your level. That means you're down at their level. And so that broke them mentally. Getting back into that freezing ass cold ocean broke them mentally. So it wasn't, they just didn't have the grit or the grind to get through it. And they were amazing athletes. You're not, SEAL training doesn't make you an amazing athlete. It selects the people who actually want to be there, because I can tell you without a shadow of a doubt, SEAL training was easy compared to things that I have done in the SEAL teams.
What do you think it was? You know, I know again you sort of briefly mentioned it there as well. But what do you think it was for you that really made you wanna carry on and get there and sort of prove to yourself that you can do it? But what was that sort of motivating? When there, I'm sure there were times where you were thinking, is it really worth it? Or I don't know whether you were actually thinking, but for the way I see it, there must have been times where you thought, is it really worth it? I could just go back. I can go back home and just do a normal job, live a cozy life. Did you have those times, or what were you thinking? At those times where you were possibly thinking of giving up?
That was never an option. I didn't. So when people ask me, "Are you going to make it?" I'm like, I didn't show up to quit. So quitting was never an option. Being injured was like some of the most depressing times while I was there, because I watched my class continue on and progress through this block of training. And then I was just sitting there, like kind of spinning my wheels like on a hamster wheel, just waiting for the next class. So quitting was never an option. Not making it through the program was never an option. If I got kicked out, it's going to come back. There was no other option. I'm not going to, because I'm in the Navy. I can do the Navy job. I don't like doing the Navy job. I want to do the Navy SEAL job. From the time I was a kid, I always knew I wanted to be something. I wanted to do the hardest things in the world. I wanted to complete the hardest military training in the world. And so not completing that training was not an option for me ever. The people who quit, I talked to one guy who was an amazing athlete, and he went through training. He went to Hell Week. He went through the breakout of Hell Week, which is very chaotic, and we can talk about that maybe in a minute. And he just wanted to see if he could get to that part of it. He had no desire of becoming a Navy SEAL. Back then, no one even knew what a Navy SEAL was. There were very few books. There was a movie out called Navy SEALs, but no one really knew what it was. It wasn't the sexy thing that it is today. And so, but I didn't want to be anything else. That's what I set my sights on from, a very young age. Nothing else mattered. I wasn't going to go back to where I grew up and become a plumber or electrician or whatever. That's not who I am. I am someone who does something that other people don't want to do. I want that challenge. I want to experience those hardships, because those are the things that are going to change my life and make me a better person.
And why do you think, before we sort of talk about, what you mentioned there about breakout in Hell Week, why do you think you're like, you're sort of a minority amongst, you're probably part of the 10% or the 5% or the 1% even that just don't want to give up? And they, what do you think is the difference between you and someone who is extremely athletic but then can't get through it?
I don't think there's really anything different. It's just how I'm wired up here, or what I have, like kind of what you mentioned earlier. I have an uncommon desire to succeed. I don't want to fail. I don't want to quit. Failure is inevitable. You're going to fail, but you take those lessons, you learn from those lessons, and then you keep going, and then you eventually will succeed as long as you don't quit. And so I think I understood that at that young age, whatever age that was. But yeah, I didn't I would say even like going to college, when you fail a class, do you quit college? Maybe, and go find a job at McDonald's or something? Or do you just keep going until you get to the end and get your degree, get the certification, get whatever it is? It's the same thing. It's what do you want to do? Do you want that degree? Then you're going to work for it and get it. Even if you screwed around and partied and your grades dropped and maybe you got kicked out of this school, well, then if you still want it, you're going to go to another school and complete your education pipeline. It's the same thing. I didn't want to not be a SEAL. Like, that's what I wanted to be. So it didn't matter what I had to do or how long it took. I was going to complete that program.
I can't lie. There have been many times where in this degree that I've just thought, I really can't be bothered. Just thought, maybe it'd be easier if I just go work at McDonald's, could just live satisfying life, get a free meal every shift. I don't know.
I understand. I went from having a PhD, a public high school diploma, to my master's in 3 years. I actually got my bachelor's and my master's at the same time.
Oh, okay. So so I mean, I'm sure you can understand points.
I understand.
Yeah, exactly. I want to talk about sort of Hell Week and this breakout that you mentioned, because I don't know what this breakout is. You tell me a bit more about sort of Hell Week. And again, I'm from the UK. Most people who listen to this or watch this are from the UK. What is Hell Week? Why is it the worst week? And then what is this breakout that you mentioned?
So just to kind of give you do have a SEAL equivalent. I'm going to use air quotes here. The SBS are probably the closest thing to because I've worked with them in the past, which is how I know who they are and what they do and how they're similar. So breakout of Hell Week it happens on Sunday night. And so the way you get ready for Hell Week is the weekend before. You're getting your boats ready. You have extra boats in case you get a major hole in a boat. You've got life jackets. You've got helmets for landing your little paddle rubber boats that you propel through the water with paddles on rocks and all these other things. And so Hell Week breakout, you start off, they put you in these giant army tents on the beach. You lay on the cot. They say, go lay down, but don't go to sleep. Well, guess what happens? The night before Hell Week, the fire alarm was going off all night. And so we didn't get very much sleep the night before. So getting ready for Hell Week, we ordered pizzas and drinks and, watched movies Sunday afternoon. And then about 6 p.m., they say, okay, go get in the tents. And when you go get in the tents, it's about 2 more hours, maybe 3 more hours of you're just alone with your thoughts. So that's a little bit of messing with you. And they say, don't fall asleep. Well, I fell asleep. And then, then you just start hearing explosions and gunfire and chaos. And the instructors come in and they are with bullhorns and they're yelling at you. And what are you doing? Why are you sleeping? Get up, get on the grinder. And it's just extreme chaos. And you're running as a class and they're spraying you with water hoses and knocking you over. And you have to have, you're working as a boat crew and you have to, report to the boat crew and everyone has to have a good head count. And it's just you're doing these crazy exercises and there's probably something on the Discovery Channel that you can find Hell Week breakout. And then they may, pull you aside and say, go hit the surf. And so you have to grab a buddy because you don't do anything on your own. Everything is as a swim pair. So you grab a buddy and then you have to tell the boat crew leader, hey, Joe and I are going to go hit the surf. We'll be back. And so that when they're called to do a head count and you're not there, they know where you are. And so it's just creating extreme chaos, and it's to as best as possible replicate combat, the chaos of combat, because the chaos of combat, things are going not your way. You've been ambushed, explosions, gunfire, you're being shot at, people are dying around you. And so you have to figure that out and work through those scenarios, work through those stresses. And so that's really what the first couple of hours of Hell Week is. And then after that, it's just grind and punish and grind and punish and grind and punish. So they hit you with the shock and awe of extreme violence and chaos and explosions and gunfire. And then they transition that into just okay, if you're still here, we're gonna continue to punish you, continue to put you in that Pacific Ocean, carry these logs around, put the boat back on your head, freeze you out, break you down mentally and physically, emotionally, and see who's going to stay.
Was there any point where sort of one of your superiors got, you really got annoyed at your superiors and you had to just go, right, just calm down, William, just get through it? Was there any point where you I'm thinking that when they were with the bullhorns, when you fell asleep, I'm thinking you must have been annoyed at least one of them.
No, because I knew it was just part of the process. It's just a game. And, I say SEAL training is not easy, but it's easy compared to real life, because in SEAL training, there are all these sort of safety parameters. There's time limits on stuff. So if the water is 47 degrees, they can only keep you in the ocean for 22 minutes, whatever the time is. So it doesn't matter how long you're in the ocean. You know that evolution is going to end at some point, and they're going to pull you out and warm you back up, by doing exercises of some sort, something cruel and unjust. And then, they'll put you back in the ocean and drop your core temperature down again, and then pull you back out and then warm you back up. And then, that may be, 2 or 3 hours, but you know what? That's going to end. It doesn't matter how much it sucks. That's going to end. And you know what? The other thing that's cool about Hell Week, is they feed you 4 times a day. So it doesn't matter how much it sucks. It's going to end, and they're going to feed you. And when they feed you, you get to sit down, and they're not messing with you, and you put food in your body, and then you get up and you start all over again. So you get to eat 4 times a day. So no matter how much it sucks, it at the very least, you're going to get a break, and they're going to feed you. In the real world scenarios, you don't get those breaks. You don't know when this thing is going to end. We've been on operations where we went out for like a couple of hours, and we're still out 3 weeks later because things didn't go as planned. And so you think you're going to be back in your, back at your barracks or wherever you are, while you're overseas, because you only took what you needed for that mission. And all of a sudden that mission turns into something that's much bigger, more complex, that requires you to still be out there for 3 or 4 weeks later. I lost you.
Oh, can you hear me?
Gotcha.
Yeah,
Yep.
sorry. So when you were talking about how that really resonated with me, what you just said, because during Ramadan, as Muslims, we sort of fast 28, and it is sometimes a struggle if it's hot and whatever. But one of the things that they always say to you is, you're going to get a meal at the end of the day, whereas there's millions of people who don't know when their next meal is. So maybe you should stop complaining and just deal with it, because you've only got to fast for, let's say, 18 hours, whereas other people have got to fast for days, and not have access to food or clean water. So I really resonated with that. So after you've gone through Hell Week and Breakout, and so then do you graduate, and what's the process after that? Like, what's the graduation process like? And then are you immediately, now you're a Navy SEAL, you stay away back in, or do you get like a day break and you get to sleep for a bit, or what happens?
So Hell Week is just it's just a week, but it's still like I said, Hell Week SEAL training is 6 months long, and Hell Week is only week number 5. So it's part of the first phase of training. You finish Hell Week, and then you have 3 more weeks of first phase, where they're not punishing you. They let you heal up. They don't make you run everywhere. The week after Hell Week is a pretty low maintenance week. The week after that, they start trying to build you up and make you stronger. You have to run faster. You have to do faster swims. You have to do faster, the obstacle course. Everything is a little bit more challenging now, because you've made it through this. Okay, we know that you want to be here. Now we're going to try to turn you into SEALs eventually, but you got a long way to go. So the second phase of training is called Hell Week. The second phase of training is called dive phase. And that's where you learn how to dive, scuba dive first, and then you learn how to dive a rebreather. So basically you're breathing your own air all over again, supplemented by oxygen. So there's a canister inside the rig, and there's no bubbles. The purpose of this is there's no bubbles. So you can sneak into enemy harbors and not be blowing bubbles to the surface. You can also stay on this rig underwater for up to 4 hours if you're really good at it. So you can cover a lot of distance, and you can do a lot of stuff underwater on this rig. But before you get to dive that rig, you learn how to dive scuba first. And then at the end of that scuba phase, there's another event that I thought was way harder than Hell Week. And it's called Pool Comp. And it's kind of like underwater jujitsu on a breath hold. And so what you do is you have the sort of this Jacques Cousteau style double hose regulator, twin 80s, so 2 80 cubic inch scuba tanks on your back, a life jacket, that is not like you would go and none of this is like you would go and you would get, scuba certified. This is very kind of archaic equipment, but it's there for a reason. It's very simple for a reason, but it is more complicated. It's simple, but it's more complicated. Because what you do is you end up crawling across the bottom of the pool at the 10-foot mark, back and forth, and instructors are above you, and they will, and you're breathing, and they'll dive down and they'll take your hose out of your mouth and, flip you upside down and maybe punch you in the stomach and then tie your hoses in knots and then let you go. And then you have to fix the problem. Maybe they unhooked a strap, a shoulder strap. They, they tied your hoses, and maybe they put an exhalation knot in your hose. So, and then you have to put everything back together in exactly the sequence that you're supposed to. If you do it out of sequence, then you fail the event. And lots of guys fail this, and they have to go back and start second phase all over again. If they fail it the second time through the next class, then they get kicked out. So that's another place where they end up losing, where we lose people in SEAL training. But so this event is, like I said, I think it's harder than Hell Week, but it is, it's in a 20-minute period, and they're coming down there. And if you do anything wrong, you fail. And the point of it is to make sure that you understand how to do procedures exactly as briefed. If you do them out of order, then you fail. And it's to see if you will break under a different kind of stress. So we know that we can't break you under the stress of just physical activity. Can we break you while you're underwater? You have no air in your lungs, and you're put into a very stressful situation where you're flipped upside down. You can't see, you can only feel, you can't breathe. Can you work through that problem set and get to the end? And so that event ends in what they call a whammy knot. And the whammy knot is a knot that you can't untie. And once you get to that point where you can't untie the knot, then you have to go through these other procedures where you ask permission to go to the surface. And I don't remember the exact hand signals, but you're there on the bottom, you've got your rig, you can't get the knot undone, you ask permission, and the instructor knows if it's a whammy knot or not. And so you ask permission to go to the surface, then you wait until they give you permission, and then you go through these other procedures of setting your rig down, putting your weight belt from behind your legs across the rig and turning all the knobs the way they need to be turned. Then you ask permission again, because at that point, the instructor who is on the surface watching you, he swims down, he's by you. And then you ask permission to go to the surface again. He gives you permission. Then you kiss the bottom of the pool and you exhale all the air that is in your lungs out. And then you tip your head back and you go to the surface. And while you're going to the surface, the instructor is punching you in the stomach, because the point of that is to make sure you don't have any air in your lungs, compressed air, because as air goes up in depth, it gets bigger. So if you're holding your breath from compressed air from down there, then you will put air bubbles into your bloodstream. You'll blow capillaries, you'll blow alveoli in your lungs. You could actually, damage your lungs very badly. And so they don't want that. They want you to do everything as safely as possible and by the procedures. And so if you get hurt doing that, then you fail. And so that was, like I said, that was the hardest, I think the single hardest event in SEAL training. After you graduate from pool comp, then you learn how to, dive using a compass, a watch, and a depth gauge to learn how to navigate underwater and dive this closed circuit rig. Once you finish that, then you go into what's called land warfare phase, where you learn how to shoot guns, you learn how to blow stuff up, and you learn, small unit tactics, how to talk on the radio, how to sneak around out in the bushes, and then you go live on San Clemente Island, which is an island off the coast of California, of Southern California, which happens to be the third largest breeding ground for great white sharks. And you fly in, you unload everything. You're there for 4 weeks. And the first thing they do is, once you have everything unloaded, they call you into the auditorium and they show you a video of Shark Week, talking about, that area, great whites. And then it's about 9 o'clock at night at that point, and they say, okay, now go get your swim gear. We're going to go do a swim to get ready to kind of get you familiar with San Clemente. And so this is like the scariest swim of all of SEAL training for sure, because you have a chem light, a glow stick attached to your life jacket. And they're like, we're all thinking they're kidding. We're not going to have to get in the water. And we absolutely had to get in the water. And we did, I think it was like a 1 mile ocean swim, but it was the fastest swim for sure that we did the entire time we were there. Something else that we did in second phase of training is we do it's a 7 mile, it's a 5.5 nautical mile, 7 statute mile ocean swim. And so that's something else that we do during SEAL training, and it was not that much fun.
That is so mental, because I guarantee you that the vast majority of people thought that after Hell Week, because that's probably the most familiar phrase that people are in the UK or when it comes to Navy SEALs. I fully thought after Hell Week, that's it, you graduate. There's a whole entire other phase that's even harder.
No, yeah, it's
mental. Yeah. No, that's crazy. I mean, just the entire process of being, even when you were talking about how a pool comp, when you were at down below and you had to ask for permission. When you were saying about asking for permission, I just thought, right, you ask for permission and then they just bring you back up. You got to ask for permission, then you got to ask for permission again, then they're going to punch you as you're going back up, and then finally you're up. And then you got to go into some pool with loads of sharks. I'm absolutely mental. I honestly can't believe it. So when you finally do graduate, right, after ages and ages, when you finally do graduate, what's that feeling like, and what happens afterwards? Do you get a day off? Do you, and then do you go into it, or what's the next process?
So the process is a little different now than when I went through. Now it's more of a pipeline. So you graduate that basic part of it, and then you go into a little more advanced training. And so when I went through, you graduated the basic underwater BUD/S, basic underwater demolition SEAL training. Then we went to Army Airborne School, and at Army Airborne School, you thought it was going to be super cool. It's not. It's you learn how to fall down for 3 weeks. It's so simple. Like, they teach to the lowest common denominator, and so what I mean by that is it's in Georgia, where it's super hot and muggy, and they have these giant pits full of sawdust, and they tell you to draw a circle in the pit of sawdust, and you stand in the middle of the circle, and then they tell you to jump forward and then fall down, and then stand back up, and then jump forward to your left and then fall down, and now jump backwards to your right, and like, you do this for 3 weeks before they put a parachute on you and let you jump out of an airplane. Then from there, we went off to you show up at the team, and then from the team you go learn more advanced training. So this is where the difference between when I went through and the way it is now. That advanced training now happens in California, and that's where you learn more advanced land warfare skills. You learn more advanced shooting skills. You learn more advanced diving skills. You learn to jump out of airplanes. I had to go through this kind of static line where the rope opens your parachute for you, and then I had to apply, and then I eventually went to a military free fall school where you learn how to skydive, where you open your own parachute. These guys now, they do like 1 week of learning how to jump out with the parachute opening behind you, and then they do 3 more weeks where they are opening their own parachute and learning that whole skill set. They go up to Alaska. They learn how to survive off the land up there, whether it's winter or summer. If it's a winter class, when they're in Alaska, one of the events that they do is work on, they call it a rewarming drill. And it's so that you can trust the equipment that you have. And so what they'll do is they'll take the students and they'll put them in the ocean, or they'll cut a hole in the ice and have, guys jump in, be completely wet. It's minus whatever outside. And then they'll say, okay, now go save your life. And so you put on your puffy jacket and pants, and you work as a pair, and you build your tent. One person puts the tent together, the other person boils the water, and there's a lot of micro motor movement that happens. But as you get colder, you don't feel like you have hypothermia setting in until about you almost have the water made, you almost have the tent built, and then like if as an instructor, if I stood back and I watched, you can just see like they go from fine motor skills to gross motor skills, where you're like they can't even like do little things with the tips of their fingers. They have to do like things like with whole hands to like, pour the cup of water into the bag of dehydrated food, so that it can, soak it up, and you still have to wait for that to soak in, and eventually put that warm meal in your body. And then you get in your sleeping bag, eat that warm meal, and then your clothing dries from the inside out, because that's the way that it's designed. It dries from the inside out. That's one way of doing it. The other way of doing it is that you put on your puffy clothes, jacket and pants, you put your rucksack on, and you just start walking. And eventually doing that work will generate enough body heat that you'll dry yourself out from the inside out. But that's, so you do all of these things, you eventually go to a team, like and then you graduate. So when I got my trident and I became an official Navy SEAL, I went through that block of training, that advanced training. I went back to the team, and then I was on probation for a year. I didn't become a SEAL until a year and a half after I showed up at the team. Then before I got my trident, I had to go before a board, and I had to know how to load crypto into radios. I needed to know how to program radios. I needed to know everything about being a jump master, how to plan a dive, how to take every gun that we had apart while being peppered with questions. I needed to know how to plot, a route with a Zodiac. I needed to know how to plot a route on a dive, describe all the safety requirements and the safety brief from a dive. You had to be able to regurgitate all of those things while being peppered with questions and asked to do different skills. And then if you passed, then you got to have your trident. Then they awarded you your trident, that thing right there. If you didn't, you got to take it one more time. And if you didn't pass it, that board, even though you've been through all of this training, they would send you back to the regular Navy. Now, guys just finish this, sort of advanced block of training. They get their trident and they graduate and they show up at the team. And at the team, now we have to take them and we have to mold them into actual Navy SEALs, because once you're at the team, I made the mistake of thinking like I've graduated the hardest military training in the world. All like the hard work is done, and I couldn't have been more wrong. Once you show up at the team, it doesn't matter your age, your rank, or anything else. You're still expected to perform better today than you did yesterday, and that's why they call it the only easy day was yesterday. Is because that was cool, that was hard yesterday, but it's a lot easier than what today's challenges are going to be.
So how long was it between when you first applied for the Navy SEALs, but then ended up going to the Navy, to then officially graduating and being able to call yourself a Navy SEAL? How long was that?
Well, if I count, I joined the Navy before I graduated high school. So, but in what's called the delayed entry program, I joined the Navy, but I finished high school. And then after I graduated high school, I joined the Navy. So I'll use that as the timeline. So it took me 4.5 years, more than that, 5.5 years from the time I decided to join the Navy to graduating SEAL training, and then another 1.5 years.
Wow. Just finally, it's mental, because I genuinely thought it was you apply, then you finally get through, then you do the however many weeks, then you do Hell Week, and then that's it. You're a Navy SEAL. You smashed it. You can tell everyone how you've done the hard. But the process is so much longer, and this is one of the reasons why I wanted to get you on the podcast, because I really want to know more about sort of the Navy SEAL, training part about it. Before you even become a Navy SEAL, how much they try to beat and batter you down so that they can really get to the best of the best. And I think that's why it's obviously regarded as one of the, I don't know how one of the best divisions in the world, because of how intense that training is. So when you finally done it, when you've done it, right, you've become a Navy SEAL, surely you rewarded yourself in some way. Surely you had some sort of meal. Nothing. You didn't reward yourself in any way at all.
No, I think the only kind of rewards that I got was after Hell Week. There was a restaurant in Coronado, California. It was called Marie Callender's. And if you graduated Hell Week, all you had to do was show up and say, hey, I graduated Hell Week. They would give you breakfast for free. And so it was like an all you could eat like breakfast buffet. And that was really the only, I guess, reward. Really for me, it was kind of anticlimactic when I was awarded, when I graduated, when I was awarded my Trident, because I was like, okay, I'm still not there yet. There's still so much more for me to do. It's not like you become a SEAL and the hard work is over. It's not. The hard work begins. And so that's kind of what I was just saying is I graduated SEAL training and I didn't think I needed to work that hard anymore. I very, very quickly learned that that's now is when the hard work begins. And so I think that's what most people in life, how they do life wrong, is they reach some achievement. I got my degree, I got my whatever, I got this job, I got married, I got whatever it is. And then they stop working towards making whatever that thing is better. I bought a house, and then they don't keep the house up and it falls into, disrepair or whatever. But I do believe that if you work to get something, then you appreciate it that much more. And so I just continued to work to get better at my job as a SEAL, to become a better sniper. Oh, I became a sniper instructor. I thought I was a pretty good sniper until I became a sniper instructor. Then I realized I don't know anything. I mean, I know some about being a sniper, but now I'm expected to teach guys. I don't know enough to teach guys. So then I had to learn and actually truly learn how to become a sniper, what those skill sets were, because I'm going to be teaching guys that are going to challenge me. And that was a great thing about being in the SEAL teams, is it didn't matter your rank or your position. If you were wrong, you were going to be told that you were wrong, and it was not going to be pretty. So you better not be wrong, or make bad leadership decisions. And you had better lead by example, because if you're telling guys not to go out and drink and drive, and then you get arrested for a DUI, you have zero credibility. So it's very credibility based. Yeah, we all made it through training. No one cares what you did yesterday. What are you doing today? And so that change in mentality and living in that world of high performers, makes you a better performer at the end of the day.
Yeah, no, I really sort of resonated with the quote that you said earlier, how yesterday was the easiest day. And I definitely agree with you about how, people, even myself, I say, oh, once I get this degree, then it'll be over, then I can finally get whatever and relax a bit. But I think that's gonna stick with me a long time. I feel like the whole idea of yesterday being the easiest day, and it's not about it getting easier, it's about it getting harder and learning from the experts and whatever. You mentioned there about sniper training. I just want to ask this quick question. So what does it? How do you become a good sort of sniper? I guess you're teaching people. You're I think you are on the sniper team or something, and you're teaching other people how to be better snipers, if I'm right. If you could sum up, what does it mean to be a good sniper? Because this is by the way, this is coming from someone that hasn't ever held a gun. I'm from the UK, so our gun laws are not like the ones in America.
Right. Yes.
So I know nothing about guns. So let's say, for example, we're in an emergency situation. You're like, Tariq, I'm going to give you this sniper. You're going to have to shoot this guy in a red suit that's going to come across. What are you telling me? And how are you, how am I going to do this?
I will tell you that being a sniper is only about 20% of it is actually shooting. But you have to be a very good shot before you can go to sniper school. And then once you're in sniper school, you're tested over and over and over and over in different skill sets on, your basic battle rifle that you use with just iron sights. Most people kind of like GPS nowadays. No one knows how to use a map anymore. When it comes to shooting, most people only know how to use some sort of a scope, and they don't know how to use the iron sights that come with the weapon. So you're tested using iron sights and just basic shooting performance. And then once you pass that, then then you get your actual sniper rifles, and you learn how to use those and different kinds of points of performance. But you learn other field craft. You learn how to sneak around and start over here and then end up over here within 200 yards of a tower with instructors looking for you, you build a final firing position, and then you take shots with blanks and try not to get compromised. So you build this final fire position, you take a shot with blanks, and then an instructor will come over to you, and he's wearing an orange hat so that the guys on the tower can see him, and they say, "Who shot?" And you say, "I shot." Okay, and he stands within 10 feet of you, and now he's like, and then he'll say, "Who did you shoot?" And he'll say, I shot William." And so now I'm the instructor that has to find him. The other instructors can't help me. Now my job as an instructor is I have to be very good at observation and see what doesn't look right. Or maybe the guy just looks completely out of place. So I look and I see, maybe I don't see him. And I say, okay, chamber and fire another round. And so he chambers and fires another round. Or maybe I'll say, I'll hold up a number or a letter or something to make sure that he can actually see me. And so if he can't identify whatever object I'm holding up in front of my face, then he probably can't see me and he's lying. But if he does, I say, okay, chamber and fire another round. And when now I know about where he is roughly, and I'm looking to see if it's blanks, but still gunpowder is being shot out, and there is a kind of an explosion out the front of the rifle. Is anything moving? Now I might actually really know where he is, but if I don't see anything out of place, I'm not going to walk the instructor in the field on the guy. Then I say, okay, get within 3 feet, and these are all judging criteria. So you go from like whatever, a 5 to a 6. Like each time, okay, if you got a shot off, you get a 6. If you can identify, you get a 7. If the second shot, you get an 8. And so this is in order to pass sniper school. All the way down to, okay, fire a second shot, and then instructor go and take your hat and put it on the sniper's head. And then if he looks good, he gets a 10. He passes. There's a certain grade that you have to get at the end, just like in school. And so that's one skill set. Another skill set is we have a certain reticle, like crosshairs, but we have the ability to measure stuff with our reticles. And you have to do a mathematical calculation. And so you can measure how far away a target is by using, you have to be very precise and measure how far away a target is, not just using a laser rangefinder. Another skill set is remembering things. So we'll put 10 items out on a table, and you have to remember those 10 items. And you have to, and we might put them out there. You have 30 seconds to memorize them. And then you go to the range for the day and go do some other stuff and come back in the afternoon and say, okay, pull out a piece of paper and write down what those 10 items are. And you have to write down 3 descriptions for each item, and you have 90 seconds to do that. And so that's, or, we walk around and you see military items and you have to remember what those are. And then later on, during the day, remember and write those items down. So those are called KEMS games, keep in memory. Another skill set is just finding objects that don't belong out in a field. So you'll have a field and there'll be 10 military items out there, and you lay down and you have 1 hour to find everything. Another skill set is field sketch. So you're looking at a building and you have to draw the building with vanishing points and all these other things, and write down all the intel that is relevant that I would send back to an assault force that may need to come and assault this target, or intel that's relevant to the mission that we're on. And so those are all skills that go into just becoming a sniper. And you have to perform all of those at an 80% or better grade just to graduate. And that doesn't even bring into all the other shooting stuff and all the other things that is involved in just becoming a sniper. It's about you have to learn to talk on the radio in different ways, send back, and the radios are not streamlined. They're heavy. You've got batteries, water considerations, and you're doing all these other kind of reconnaissance missions. You have to learn how to take, even though we're saying learn how to write with draw things and do reconnaissance with a pen and a piece of pencil and a ruler and a piece of graph paper, we still need you to be able to take pictures, upload those pictures to a computer, And it's not as simple as your iPhone or Android or whatever. It's much more complicated than that. And then, create basically, the Intel picture, and then send that out via satellite communications back to the headquarters. And then that gets, graded. And then, maybe they say, okay, you need to maneuver to a different place. And so those are all things, just to become a sniper, just to pass the course.
That's so again, it's so like I just never would have thought all of these things, things like measuring and doing calculations. For me, it was just like you hold the gun up, you aim, and you just shoot, and that's how it is. But like all these other things that I just never thought of considering, and it does make you appreciate, even more. I mean, I know you're not looking for appreciation, but people that can do this and go through the entire Navy SEAL process and then be able to specialize in these, crazy skills that like the 1% can only really do. It's mental. I want to so I think I'm advancing a few years now, where you started specializing in undersea operations, like and that was your specialty. And what I found very interesting, and I found this literally last minute when I was doing some last minute research, just to see if I could find anything else, that these missions that you went on had to be approved by the president. Is that right?
That's correct.
So what was that like? What were those missions like? Why were they? Why could only the president approve of them? Why were they so big that only the president could approve of them?
Let's see. What can I say?
I was gonna say, what can you say?
The reason that they are approved by the president of the United States is because these are no-fail missions. You cannot fail this mission. Is because of the strategic importance. So I'm not talking. These aren't Iraq or Afghanistan or anything like that. These are other missions that benefit the national security of the United States. And so, if a failed mission would be maybe my face on Al Jazeera, nobody wants that. I'm not that pretty. I don't need to be on. And yeah, so it's not that. Yeah, failure is not a good thing during those. So getting ready for those missions, it's sometimes it's a 2 or 3 year process, getting ready for it, training for it, building different kinds of technology, things that don't even exist, in order to go and do these things in areas that maybe you are not supposed to be. I can't really remember. Hard to remember.
Okay, all right, okay, fair enough. So you can't give us any more details about sort of what you were doing at. So did you ever speak to the president, or was that done through someone else?
It's done. It's like there's a whole process to pretty much everyone else along the way. It wasn't like me going to the CNO and asking him if I could go to SEAL training. It's what are the risks? What are the mitigating factors? Risk mitigating factors. The value. Is it even valuable to put forces into harm's way to achieve whatever the objective is? It's a very, very long process to get to this mission to be put on the president's desk for his signature.
And sort of, I mean, I know you can't really say anything else. One thing that I do want to ask, so who was the highest person you ever spoke to in terms of sort of office? You didn't speak to the president, but in terms of someone that spoke to you because of the position that you were in, who would you say that was, or what position were they in? Do you know?
Probably just the CNO. I have been to the White House. I've been to I've actually, you know what? It was the president. It was George Bush Jr.
Yeah.
He came to SEAL Team 10 when I was there. Him, Dick Cheney, like the whole kind of administration. And, we hung out for a little while.
You hung out? What does hung out mean? Were you like, hey, George, you all right? Hey, Dick?
Yeah. Not quite so informal, but yeah, okay. He was, they came there, it was like kind of a ceremony, we shook hands, we, maybe traded a few words.
Fair enough.
But it wasn't like me alone with, the president. It was
and a cup of tea.
A lot of us. Yeah.
Fair enough. What were you what were you doing in the White House? Was it part of your was it you and your sort of team?
It was we
or-
were getting ready to deploy. We were just
Okay.
we were doing kind of a tour around Washington D.C., going to different agencies to get really just to kind of get the most recent intel that we could for areas that we were going to go work in.
When you're preparing for these missions, again, these missions that have to be approved by the president. What's your thinking behind it, and what are you telling your team just before you go out?
What at that point we've trained so much up to that point. There's we just brief the mission and go do it. There's not much else to really tell.
Well,
we know what we're going to go do.
Yeah.
What's that?
Well, that's what I mean. I'm just picturing it. Like I've trained for this. We know it like the back of your hand what you need to do. You just now need to go do it. You're in a group of however many. Is that as the sort of the person that sort of that you're there as well. You want are you one of the leaders in that team, or that specialized, or is it just? Are you just one of the members that specialize in that?
Yeah, kind of in a leadership role. Yeah,
the leadership position. So all the other guys, I mean, I guess they're experienced as well. Are they looking for a bit of it? Are they looking for an inspirational speech beforehand? This is potentially a life or death one. Like you said, potentially on the front page of Al Jazeera. Is something being said? What's that? What are those last few moments like? Is it just silence? I don't know.
No, you just brief the mission and then you just go do it. All right, we're here now. Let's go. Don't fuck it up.
Yeah, that's mental though to me, because it's like I go do an exam and I wish someone would prep me and get me ready. Like, go on, Terry, you can do this. Put on the Rocky music. Start jumping. Shadow boxing a little. But you're just like you're all in. I'm just picturing you and like loads of these other guys with beards as well, just being like, right, let's go do it, and then you just go. It's and just you one last. And during the mission, were there any thoughts of, right, are you thinking to yourself, don't mess it up, or are you just going, I'm gonna, are you full with confidence because of the training you've done?
No, we're it's the worst thing that could happen is we've trained so much that someone is complacent about what they're doing.
Okay.
So that's really probably the worst thing that could happen, is that complacency led to not following procedures, not doing something proper. But again, you train so much, you get ready for this specific task, you know it inside and out. You train to failure. We try to make training to be harder than what the actual event is going to be, because we've done stuff and we're like, that was too easy, that it can't be over already. And so it kind of is a little bit anticlimactic because we worked so hard getting ready for it. But if you're expecting worst case scenario all the time, you're going to be more locked on and you're going to have a better performance at the end of the day.
But then if you know that your training is harder than it actually is, isn't that going to lead to complacency?
You don't know that it's going to be harder.
Oh, okay. So right. Okay.
You don't know. Because you're always preparing for worst case scenario. If this happens, this is a contingency. If this happens, this is a contingency. And so you practice those contingencies. And so things still happen that you didn't plan for, but you have such a good plan in place, and you've practiced failing. You've practiced those contingencies and implementing those, so that it doesn't matter what happens. Even if it wasn't something you practiced, you still have a plan in place to navigate it. And that's, I think, many people don't do that in life, where they don't have a plan to actually go forward. They just sort of go through life blindly without any sort of idea of what they're going to do or how they're going to do it. And they're just like, maybe I'll figure it out. And it oftentimes does not turn out as good as they would like for it to, or as good for them as it could be.
I love how you sort of relate all of your experiences and everything you've done to sort of, in ways that I can sort of relate to it. So like, you sort of, so that everyone can understand it. I love that. And I think that for me, that's what's probably been most beneficial about speaking to you. And I hope it's beneficial to people that are listening as well. I'm sure it is. I want to ask you, and again, I think we're advancing a few years as well. You got to the point where you were protecting Iraqi elected officials. How much can you tell us about that? What was the situation there? I'm assuming you're in Iraq at this point. How much are you
Yep.
allowed to? You smile there, so I don't know how much you're allowed to allowed to tell me about it.
I'm impressed that you've done quite a bit of research on me.
Oh, trust me, I've been doing research. Yeah, I'm telling you, I've been
Um,
excited to have you on. Yesterday, when you said you couldn't come on, I was doing more research as well. I've got pages filled with it all year.
So our mission in Iraq changed from hunting bad guys to protecting the interim government of Iraq. That is not a traditional Navy SEAL mission, but this was another one of those no-fail missions. This is you. So in the SEAL teams, one of the things that makes us better than other forces is we have a very deliberate way that we prepare for a deployment. So you get, new guys and old guys are in a platoon. New guys don't know anything. They've just graduated from training. Old guys have done at least 1 or 2 or 3 deployments or 10. You put them together. We go through we start off very basic and we ramp up to be very advanced very quickly, working as a team, working out, tactics, techniques, and procedures in how to be a Navy SEAL, from diving to jumping out of airplanes to shooting, moving, and communicating, to taking down targets, to taking down ships, buildings, traveling off-road in armored vehicles or unarmored vehicles, or doing high-speed driving, or whatever the skill set is. And then we culminate that into, being an assault force that is very surgical in going and finding bad guys and removing them from the battlefield or removing them from wherever without causing a lot of collateral damage. And hopefully being undetected the entire time. So if we can get in and we can get out and no shots are fired and no one even knows that we were there, and we've been successful at doing that at times. Other times it didn't work out quite as successful, but that's what we're really good at. And then we were asked, okay, you're good at that, but now we actually need you to do this other thing, and we think that you're the best qualified to do it. And so we shifted focus in, we did this whole workup, and we were excited to go hopefully to Afghanistan and start doing missions over there. It's I think it was more fun over there than in Iraq. But then we were told, okay, you are going to do this protection detail because your team, your platoon is, I believe in the leadership and the capability of your platoon to go do this no-fail mission. None of us wanted to go do this mission. It's not sexy, it's boring. And we've been training for a year and a half to go do, kick indoors and hunt bad guys. Now we're babysitters. So we started training to go do this mission. So we got to do some pretty cool stuff, some pretty cool training, some, high-speed driving, shooting guns from, armored vehicles, from different SUVs,
The Rambo
from,
stuff,
different
finally.
things.
You finally
like
get to be Sylvester Stallone.
More James Bond-ish
Yeah.
than
Okay. Still good.
or something like that. And then we went and we're like crashing cars into one another and things like that to like protect your VIP. And so we got to do all of that training, and that was super cool. But then we get overseas, and it was not cool. Our VIP did not really want an American presence around, so we were sent away to go kick doors and do what we wanted to do, and that was awesome. And then the leadership said, "Hey, if you keep this American presence around you, we're going to give you armored vehicles. We're going to train your security force. We're going to, fly you around the country wherever you need to go to increase your political clout so you can get reelected and all these other things." And so we got pulled back into the void of protecting, these government officials. Strategically, it was critical to the stability of Iraq, and really ultimately for them to have free elections, and so the U.S. can eventually leave. So we went and we did that mission, and one of the cool things that happened while we were doing that, for me, at the very least, is I got to be in the room while they were writing and signing their constitution, and it was interesting to see how they, in the United States, where there's a separation of church and state, and this other stuff over there for sure, because it's a Muslim country. They brought in the religious leaders to help them define what they're going to write, and so I got to be in the room while they were writing and signing their constitution. So that was kind of a cool thing, not sexy, but kind of a cool strategic thing that I got to participate in.
What's that process like? Because I saw that as well, that you were there, during the author of of a country's constitution. Did you feel a sense of honor? Did you start thinking about the American Constitution and what whether maybe it was maybe that's how the American Constitution was developed? Of having loads of people in one room and talking about this, sorry, I just heard someone on the side. What were your feelings of that? Did you feel a bit of honor? You're the representative of the United States there, kind of. What was that entire process of like? What did it look like?
I didn't really think much about it at the time, and I didn't think about it much until we were, talking about it afterwards. The sort of my boss at the time, and then that's kind of when it kind of sunk in. I was like, wow, I was standing in the room while history was taking place. But it didn't really resonate to me because I can't understand what they're saying. I have a translator there, and he was kind of telling me what was going on and some of the things that they were talking about. But it didn't resonate in the beginning. It didn't resonate until later on when my boss and I were kind of talking about it. I was like, we were there while they were like signing and creating history, like signing their constitution. And so we were both like, that's super cool. And that's about as far as it went, I think.
No, I mean, it's mental that you were there as well. I've always wondered about, in situations like that, like obviously it's super serious, but is there any point where there's an idiot, a clown in the room who just makes one little joke or tries to say anything and like they just burst into laughter for a little second and then they carry on writing the constitution, sorry. Does that happen, or is it fully super serious? We're all writing this down. No one's allowed to smile. What's the
I think once the religious leader rolled in, it was all business all the time.
Yeah.
And it was interesting. He was a super young guy.
Was
like
he?
All the other guys are like old and kind of gray. He was a very young. He was probably late 20s, early 30s.
Oh wow!
He looked kind of like you.
Did it? Do you know how old I am?
No.
Can you guess?
You're like 19.
20.
20.
So yeah. So I mean, usually some people say a lot more because of the beard, but I said that I was in uni, so I guess that kind of. I mean, you can still go uni at any age, but that might have narrowed it down. But that's. I mean, it goes to show sort of what status does as well, especially religious status. Like this young guy coming in, and all of a sudden they're like, "Oh, we need to be serious now."
Right. Yeah.
I've got some sort of final questions to you. It's gone a lot longer than initially intended, so I do apologize for that. What's the best piece of advice you ever got?
Probably that your reputation, once you lose credibility with your reputation, then it is very, very hard to get it back. So no matter what, don't ever lose credibility with the people around you.
And who gave you that piece of advice?
It was an old Master Chief that I had, and he would put that out to like everyone. He didn't say it directly, specifically to me, but it certainly resonated over, because he would like, listen, you guys as leaders here, you have to always lead from the front. You can never, kind of like what I was talking about earlier, you can never lose credibility with your men. Because once you do, if let's say you say, don't go out and get in bar fights or get it, drink and drive and do stupid stuff like that. If you go and do that, then you've lost all credibility with your people. So you always have to perform better than them. You have to always be the subject matter expert. You have to be, ahead of them no matter what, and never lose credibility. It's okay to not know something. It's okay as a leader to ask your guys, hey, how do we do this? Like, you have a different thought process. So that was one of the cool things is having this, the ability as a leader to go to my guys. If I didn't know the answer, I would ask them, how would you do this? Not necessarily giving up the fact that I didn't know how to do it, but I would just ask them, how would you guys do this? And that helped me maintain credibility. And that also helped me to empower those young guys and sort of bring them up and make them feel better about their position in the SEAL teams.
What piece of advice, if you could go back to speak to your 20-year-old self, what piece of advice would you give to them?
I would say, I was actually thinking about this question today, or last night or something. I would say, don't get complacent. I would say, if it doesn't feel right, don't do it, or get out of that scenario. And I would say, eliminate all toxic people in your life. All toxic relationships, period.
100%. I think that's it. I think more and more people are talking about it as well, about sort of eliminating toxic, people that are toxic relationships. 100% agree with you on that. I know I said that was the sort of last question before the quick fire round, but I just thought of something. Afghanistan. So you've been in, combat, you've seen all this, death and destruction. What did you make of what happened in Afghanistan recently with the Taliban taking over again after, so many lives? I know, I'm sure you've been asked a million times this question. What are your opinions on the situation? I know Jocko's talked about, the way he thinks it should have been dealt with. What are your thoughts?
I'm in line with what Jocko said. If I heard I think I heard the last thing he said. Really, what happened was incredibly disrespectful for anyone who has ever served there, no matter what country you're from, because we've had international partnerships in that country for 20 plus years. Number one, disrespectful, tactically inept. And I believe in my heart that the people who are in charge of that, trying not to make this too political, but they should all be relieved of duty for allowing it to go down the way that it did.
And that's it for this week's episode of the Me, Myself, and Hopefully You podcast. Let me know if you made it till the end. I really, really would appreciate it. Comment down below and let me know what your favourite story of William's was. It was an absolute pleasure to sit with him. And William, if you're watching, then thank you so much for taking the time to come on. If you did enjoy it, then please do hit that like button and subscribe so you don't miss out on future episodes. I've got some huge episodes coming up over the next few weeks, including with someone who was convicted of murder and then was in prison for 30 years. Absolutely crazy. Now, if you've been a long time subscriber, you'll know I've interviewed someone in the past who's been in prison for 26 years. So before that one comes out, make sure you check that one out in the link below. 26 years with Roman Reed. Absolute amazing podcast, but these future ones are going to be even better. But other than that, thank you so much for watching. Have a great week. Until next time.